All right, Denver Broncos Mile High View, no commercials, no bullshit. Now, I'm going to do some quarterback obsessing right now. Everybody loves the quarterback obsess, okay? Sometimes I think that addiction can hurt you and hurt a franchise as much as help. Personally, I think quarterbacks should be put in perspective. I'm just going to give something on some of these quarterbacks. Well, before I do that, this video is going to be about the two-quarterback system. The league right now is, whether people want to admit it or not, it's a two-quarterback league. Now, I came to this conclusion a few years ago, about 3 years ago, when I was discussing this with Pittsburgh Steelers fans and Ben Roethlisberger. The guy's continually, getting himself injured, and I'm like, you guys need to really look at getting I said this 3 years ago. You really need to get yourself a replacement for that guy because he's becoming more and more like a porcelain doll. And I said, even at best, if you even you need a quality backup. And that's kind of my point. In this league anymore, you need a quality backup quarterback. I said that a few years ago, and just last year, in last year's Super Bowl, who won the Super Bowl? It was Nick Foles beating out Tom Brady. You got to have a quality a backup. When Peyton Manning went down with the Denver's drive to the Super Bowl, Brock Osweiler came in and worked great as a backup. So in this day and age, your backup, in my opinion, is just as important as the starter in the fact of getting you through a season. Hopefully your quarterback won't be out for the full year like Garoppolo. But look at San Francisco. Their backup quarterback has gotten. It was a tremendous price to pay, but the dividends that's going to come out of that, they got a quality backup now. That if Garoppolo does, maybe he's out for 4 weeks. Maybe they could keep him out for 6 weeks, figuring that. I think it's Mullen, their backup quarterback. Well, he could at least win 4 of the 6 games. He's quality enough. He's got the experience now because of Garoppolo going out. So that could work out. And maybe even if push came to shove and he was in the Super Bowl, he'd be comfortable enough to go toe-to-toe. Believe it or not, we've seen it happen. But it's really a two-quarterback league. So let's get to the Denver Broncos. I think this is an ideal year to get that backup quarterback. One that maybe he's flexible. He can, the biggest problem with the Denver Broncos right now is that they just don't have, they want to go with a Kubiak system, okay? A zone block. And so, so I guess you're going to have to get a backup that's more leaning towards that type of a football. But who knows what's going to happen in Denver once there's ownership. It's interesting. Or even even if they get a so-called franchise quarterback, are you stuck now with a guy? Say they go to the 2020 draft, it's the 2020 draft. Princesses are going to fall from the sky, quarterback gods. Yeah, okay. Who knows if any of those guys are going to work out. And even not to their, they could be screwed over by a coaching staff that just doesn't even work for the type of quarterback they are. And, anyway, so, and that's what I was going to get into, these quarterbacks. I'm not as sold on franchise quarterbacks or so-called franchise quarterbacks as a lot of people are. In my opinion, let's take Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton is limited. I think they figured him out. I think the Broncos were Wade Phillips was the one that destroyed him, because Cam Newton's great when you build a brick wall in front of him and he can sit there and pat the ball all day long and then throw the football, and scrambling only gets you so far. I think that I'm not sold on him. And I'd hate to be stuck with a guy who's called the franchise. And look at even Phillip Rivers. It's interesting about him, Mr. Franchise. I mean, look at his whole career. Do you think if you got somebody else, you would have been doing better than out of all the years that you spent with Phillip Rivers? Who on one hand is a good quarterback. He's great. On the other hand, he's like the most boneheaded quarterback you ever saw. So let's, I would like us to stop looking at quarterbacks like Disney princesses that can do no wrong, and you got to stick with them. I mean, Brady was a fourth stringer. You got to have a system, and you got to, have some stability and bring a guy up. And, you really should have a quarterback that's been in a system a while. Take a look at all you Case Keenum haters out there. I mean, take a look at the quarterback that the Minnesota Vikings brought in to replace him, Kirk Cousins. I mean, in all honesty, you can sit there and say how much better he is, but he didn't even get his team to the playoffs. I mean, that's a total disaster, and it's on him. He's the quarterback. Obviously it isn't all on him. I mean, I get that, but I mean, it's what you can do. It's really how you put a system of players and personnel around a guy. It's really, I mean, look at Nick Foles. Everybody and their sister said that the guy wasn't the answer as soon as Carson Wentz went down. Everybody was saying that. Nobody had any faith because, remember, they got Carson Wentz because Nick Foles wasn't the answer. We keep, if we say that enough, it's got to be true. So people really need to stop putting these guys up on a pedestal. I have gripes about Aaron Rodgers, too. I think he gets himself put in bad situations. He gets injured, kind of like Ben Roethlisberger, but I know everybody likes the hero, all that garbage. But, Brady will self-sack. I brought this up before. Brady will self-sack. I know it's not heroic, but he knows when to duck and cover, and he lives to see the next day. You want a smart quarterback. You remember they got so mad in Denver when Kyle Orton would slide. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So, you got to. It's kind of a dance between coaching system, scouting, and your quarterback. And making sure that everybody's quality out there. Drew Brees, they were going to drum him out of town 3 years ago. But his player personnel around him went down the tubes, so he suffered for that, But they were talking about, well, he's seen his days, but they put some player personnel around him and look at him. So there's a lot. It's not just about a QB. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to especially a football team in this day and age. Anyway, so it's what I'm trying to say. It's a 2-quarterback system. So I think 2019 draft would be great. The Broncos move up even if it's the second pick. I don't think you get one on the first pick. There's some good defensive players out there, and I think the Broncos could always use that, especially if it's a corner. Even an interior defensive lineman would be really something the Broncos could use and would benefit them. You never can shy away from good defensive players. And if you look at offensive players, I mean, look at what Bill Belichick. Of course, he's got a system, Bill Belichick. And he can just plug in, third or fourth rounders with no problem at all on, receivers, tight ends, whatever. No problem at all because they fit the system. They have a great scouting team out there. The Denver Broncos need to put a really good, one way or another, they've got to put a really good scouting team. And that's why I thought Gary Kubiak was really good. If you just stick to doing what he was good at, scouting players. Just if you're good at something, just stay at. Just do that. Scout players. So at any rate, it's a 2-quarterback system, whether you like it or not, and you really got to. It's just as important getting a good backup as it is having your so-called franchise quarterback, because there's no guarantees, and you need to have somebody that can pick up the reins. So anyway, there you go.